Hello and welcome to the March 2022 Gaming PC Builds of the Month, brought to you by Newb Computer Build. My name is Corey. Here we are with the March updates to the builds. I'm going to do one video this month that encapsulates all of the builds. These builds should be good enough for any gamer, if you want to play all the way from 1080p into 4K kind of resolutions at high settings. So these builds are based on price per performance value. So we have any builds from anywhere from $500 all the way up to $2,000, and they're all within budget ranges. So the low end one being $500 to $600, the build will be within that range, and then the high end being $1,500 to $2,000 within that range. And then also, if you come to the site here at newbcomputerbuild.com, there are upgrade suggestions if you do have more to spend or you want ideas for upgrades in the future. For updates for March 2022, there are some interesting updates. So last month we started including Intel Alder Lake, so I'll get into that in a second. When we get to those builds. But also to note, here I'm over at Tom's Hardware. They have this article here that was just posted about a day ago. Graphics card prices dropped 11% in February. Well, that's exciting. And as we go through these builds, you'll notice that, or even if you're in the market for a gaming PC build or you've been for a while, you might notice that there's more supply also. So there's more choice, therefore prices are going to go down a bit. I'm not really sure on the factors that are affecting this, but take a look at this chart. Average January eBay prices of graphics cards compared to the February prices, and you can see the change across the board on a per card basis. So this is exciting. The 3070 is one that we include in our builds here. So and it's one of the more popular cards at the moment. So you can see it only went down by 9%, but you will notice that it is actually widely available now. So, and as you go through, you can see like the 3050, which isn't that popular, went down obviously a little more as it's not as competitive, but this is very exciting. You can go check out this article if you really want to dive into the specific cards. But let's get started with the gaming PC builds of the month. We're going to start with the high-end build here. We're going to start with the $1,500 to $2,000 build. Who is this one for? This one's for those that really want to game at extreme settings. You know, really high FPS at 1080p if you wanted to, all the way into 1440p, max settings, really high FPS, and then good gameplay at 4K as well. And so this build is that on a price per performance basis. This is basically one of the best, most practical builds in this budget range, and everything else over and above that is kind of fluff, unless you really want to get hardcore into 4K and streaming and stuff like that, and then you might want to throw a little more money, and I can get into kind of what those upgrade suggestions may be. But let's get started with the CPU. So the CPU we have is the Intel Core i5-12400. We included this one for the first time last month. This comes in at $208.90 at the moment, and I just want to note that this is one of the best kind of mid-range gaming PC CPUs out there right now on a performance price per performance sort of ratio. You can see if you do want an upgrade suggestion, you could go with the very best. I would say. I mean, you can go with the i9, but the i7-12700K would be your next best bet. And this one has 12 cores, mind you, versus the 6 that are on the i5. But gaming-wise, you might not notice too much of a difference. So if you really had the money and wanted to go all out, you could go this range. But otherwise, I would just recommend staying with the i5-12400. And also keep in mind, if you went with the i7-12700K, you will need to get a separate CPU cooler. So do keep that in mind. But let's move on. So the cooler in this one is the included Intel Laminar RM1 CPU cooler. The motherboard is one of those newer B660 boards. This is the Asus Prime B660 Plus. Motherboard $139.99. Graphics card that we're including this month is the EVGA GeForce RTX 3070 at $1,075.99, and they are available, especially at the time of posting this, and there's plenty of 3070s available, mind you. So you should be able to get your hands on one, which is great news. The memory we have is a Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB kit, 2GB sticks at $69.99. The storage we have is a Crucial P2 1TB NVMe SSD at $99.99. The power supply is a 750-watt EVGA Supernova 750 G5 at $106.81. And then the case for this one is the Corsair 4000D at $104.99, bringing you to a total at the beginning of March at $1,805.67. Let's move on to the next one. This is the mid-range gaming PC build, the $1,000 to $1,500 build. This build is probably one that would fulfill most of everyone's needs too. If you want to play all the way into higher 1440p resolutions, this should fit the bill as well. And at high FPS at 1080p, no problem. So again, we have the Intel Core i5-12400 CPU at $208.90, included with the Intel Laminar RM1 cooler. And then the motherboard again is the Asus Prime B660 Plus motherboard at $139.99. And then for the graphics card for this one, we have the Sapphire Nitro Plus Radeon RX 6600 XT graphics card at $635.99, way more affordable than it used to be. Memory we have is the Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB kit again, 2 8GB 669.99, Crucial P2 500GB NVMe SSD $49.99, and then the power supply for this one is this Supernova G5 650 watt at $74.99. The case to bring it all together is the NZXT H510 at $69.99. And this build at the beginning of March 2022 is $1,269.84. Now this is this entry-level gaming PC build. This is kind of a build that could fulfill most gamers' needs. If you're just going to game at 1080p, you don't even need to go above this, really, in my opinion, unless you really want to future-proof your build and go with that $1,000 one above. However, this one should be good enough for those that just want 1080p gaming. So let's get into it. So the CPU, this is $800 and $900 build, by the way. CPU is the Intel Core i5 11400 at $174.97. This one does not come with a cooler, so we do need to include one. This is the Cooler Master Hyper 212, $43.99. And the motherboard for this one is the MSI B560M Pro Series motherboard, $97.99. Then the graphics card powering this one is a GTX 1650. So you could go with a 1650 Super if you can find one of those. This one fits the bill for this build. Pretty good, I think. And this one comes in at $318 at the moment. And then the memory we have is, again, the Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB kit, $66.99. SSD is a Crucial P2 500GB. NVMe SSD, $49.99. Power supply, PVS 600 watt Prestige, $52.46. And the case for this one, I always like the Master Box cases. This is the Cooler Master Box NR600, $76.49, for a total of $883.88 at the start of March 2022. And now finally, the final build we have here is that entry level gaming PC build. This is kind of that, what we could call the console killer one, or the console replacement sort of version, because it's just kind of a basic entry level build that uses integrated graphics. So you don't have to worry about finding a graphics card. It uses the graphics built into the CPU, so you don't have to worry about that or get an inflated or overly priced card at the moment, and you'll still be able to play games at 720p into 1080p resolutions, no problem. Scaled back the settings on some games, but more than playable in all the games out there right now. So, and it also gives you the option to upgrade to a graphics card in the future. You just got to plug it in if you can find an affordable one in the future. So let's get started. The CPU, the AMD Ryzen 5 5600G, integrated graphics in there, $218.98. The cooler is included, AMD Wraith Stealth cooler. Motherboard is the Gigabyte B550M DS3H motherboard at $109.99. And then, like I said, the graphics are the integrated Radeon RX graphics on that CPU. An alternative could be something like the 1650 for $450 in the future. Actually, that might be even a little cheaper now. Or the 1650 that was mentioned above could be an option as well. RAM, the memory we have for this one is Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB kit at $69.99. Storage is SATA Kingston's 240GB SSD, $34.99. Power supply for this one is the Thermaltake Smart 500 watt, $39.99. The case to bring it all together is the Bitphoenix Nova Mesh. PC gaming case, this is the white version. It also comes in black as well. And then $39.51 for the case, and for a total of just over $500, $513.45. All right, that does it for all of the main builds here. I'm just going to scroll to the top. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If you're building a PC, I wish you the best of luck. Leave any questions you may have in the comments, or visit the site here, newbcomputerbuild.com. You can comment on the site. I'm more than willing to help you out. As well, there's suggestions for upgrade suggestions for your CPUs or your builds and stuff like that, if you jump right into the builds here too. All right, that does it. Best of luck building this March 2022.